By far the best way to create harmonies in your song or track that you're working on is to have the singer go ahead and do several passes and do as many takes to get them just right and sounding clean. But we don't always have that luxury, and if you have a situation where you don't have access to the singer, you can't re-record and add the harmonies. We do have a few tools that we can make use of within Studio One. And these can also be useful if you're working on electronic or experimental music and you want to try out some experimentation with harmonies, then you can use these tools for that as well. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look at these. Now I've got a cheesy vocal recording here on this one track, so let's play that back to hear how it sounds. Okay, so let's add some harmonies to this. Now the first thing you'll want to do is right click in the track column on that track and choose duplicate track complete. Be sure that you choose that. And then let's right click on that second one and duplicate that complete as well. Now when you right click on an event, on audio event, we can see we have a transpose, and we can use this to raise the pitch of our sample in semitones. But I'm going to use the inspector, and this is essentially the same transpose setting as we saw in the contextual menu. Let's select the second one, and for this I'm going to click once and put in 4 to raise that up by 4 semitones. Let's select the third one, and for this I'm going to put in -3. I'll press enter. Now let's play these back and hear how they sound. Okay, so they don't sound that great. First of all, we do have some clipping, so I'm going to F3 and open up the console. I'm going to hold Shift and select this first one, and then pull these down just a little bit. Now, the first thing that you want to do is take a look at the time stretch setting, and that would be here. By default, this is going to be set to drums, so that's part of the reason why they sound so bad. Let's change that to Pro Monophonic Format, which I think should work best in with this particular audio recording. We'll select the third one, and let's change that from drums to the monophonic as well. Then let's listen back to this again. Okay, so it's a little bit better. Now, most of the time when we're working with vocals in our track, we're not going to leave them dry. We'll apply some sort of processing to that, usually a touch of reverb or a lot of reverb. So this is something else that we can use to help these sound a bit better. So let's close out the inspector, and I will F3 to open up the console. Now I'm going to right click in the empty space here and choose to add an effects channel. And on this effects channel, let's click on the plus to add a room reverb, and let's take them to church on this one. So we'll choose church. We can close that out now. And let's come to the send section of our 3 vocal tracks and choose to send that to effects 1 that I just created. So now these are all being processed by our room reverb, which is on the church setting. Let's play this back and listen to this. Okay, so now we can really play with some of these faders and get this to sound a little bit better. So you can use the fader for your effects channel to adjust how much of that reverb you want in there. You can also use the sends up above, the send levels. Maybe you don't want the main and original vocal, maybe you don't want that to have so much reverb on that. It could be a little bit more dry. But these other ones that are kind of processed with the transposing tool, maybe we want to add a little bit of reverb to help those, to soften them up a little bit and take away some of that mechanical sound. And also we could take the levels down for these two a little bit. So just experiment with the faders, the levels, for each of your harmonies and also the send level to try to achieve the sound and a better quality. So let's listen back to this. Okay, so this isn't perfect, but with a bit of experimentation with the levels and trying, you could also try out different spaces for your reverb, try out different reverbs, maybe if you have third party. And again, if you're in a jam, this can be something that may work for you. And a lot of it has to do on the particular recording that you have and how it's sung, what the melody is, how much vibrato and everything. So this may work with some audio material better than others. And you can even try this with instruments that are playing a melody as well. So let's take a look at the second method, and I think this one should be a bit better quality. I'm going to remove the effects track, and let's start over from the beginning, and we'll remove these out. I'll Shift T to remove those. And let's just start that as we hadn't done anything yet. We still have our initial single vocal recording. Now the second method is going to start off the same. We'll right click and duplicate the track complete. We'll right click on that one and duplicate complete. But for this time, what I'm going to do is right click on this third one, and we'll want to come to the event section here. And then near the bottom, we want to separate shared copies, because these events were created from the original one up above. And with this method, we're going to be using the Melodyne, and this can get a little bit funky if you don't create kind of a separate copy of this vocal recording when we start processing in Melodyne. So you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, this is listed as 2. And if I select this, we see 1 and 1. Now, unfortunately, Melodyne is only included in the professional version of Studio One, so if you're only using Prime or Artist, then this is not going to be available for you unless you purchase Melodyne and get that feature. But with this event selected, I'm going to press Control M, and that's going to open up Melodyne. And we can see what Melodyne calls as blobs, representing our waveform up above. And to make adjustments to the pitch, we would simply click to select one of these. We can click and hold to audition that. But so for the first blob, I'm going to take that to C sharp. And I'm using the mouse wheel to scroll. I'm going to select the second one and take that down to B flat. And let's hear how this sounds, how the processing of Melodyne sounds on this. So I'm going to solo, and let's listen back. Okay, I think it sounds pretty decent. Let's now come to the third, and I will Control M. Now for this one, I'm going to take the first blob here to A, and the second one to B flat. And this is just as simple as coming to the center of your blob and click, hold, and dragging up and down to adjust the pitch. This is going to adjust in semitones. If you would like to do a finer adjustment in cents, just hold down Alt while you're dragging up or down. Let's close out the editor and listen back to this. Okay, and let's come to our mixer here. I'm going to hold Shift to select this one and take these down just a little bit more. And we can once again add our effects channel, put the reverb on, We'll take them to church again. And let's send these to the effects one. Same process as we saw earlier. Now let's play this back. See, that's a little bit funky. You could play around and adjust that. Okay, so you can always come in to the Melodyne by Control M on the event that you select and play around with the adjustments. You can come to the top of your event and select it first. And then when you have this icon here, you can double click to separate this. So if you'd really like to come in and do some finer adjustments to the melody, then you can do that. But all of the details of how to use Melodyne is beyond the scope of this tutorial. I just wanted to really show you the methods that you can use. I will put up an in-depth tutorial on Melodyne soon, but just know that you can do some extra work in here to make things sound a bit better. Okay, we'll close out the editor. Let's delete that event, this one, Shift T to remove that track, and this one. And actually, we don't need this either. So the next and final method is more experimental. And if you're doing electronic or experimental music, this is going to be more useful for that. If you're doing something acoustic, I wouldn't really use it for that. Let's come to the browser and the files. This is our same sample that we've been listening to. I'm going to right click and send to a sample one. And I'm just going to really quickly talk about this one. We won't spend much time here. Now, we have our caps lock to open up the virtual QWERTY keyboard. So now at this point, I could trigger. We hear it's the same sample. And with this, you can actually, while this is loaded into sample one, you can just press 2 or 3 keys to play back. And you can hear the pitched up vocal finishes sooner than the original on C3 during playback. We can use the follow song tempo, even though this has been a little bit buggy for me at times, getting both to play back at the same time. But if I turn the follow song tempo on, then this will stretch or compress the audio that's being played on different pitches to all play back at the same time. So let's try that. So again, the quality is really not that great on this one, but it could be used for, again, experimental or fun stuff that you're doing. You would just enter into record and press the keys that you'd like to create the harmony you want, and then you're all set. Now, I do have a track where I use this method, so I'm going to just play a few seconds of that so you can get an idea of some sort of instance where you could use this particular method. So let's come to the song. I'm going to open this up. And then here on this Vox sample 1, you can see this is triggered only one pitch at a time through these first bars. But here, I trigger that more than once. So let's listen back. I'm going to solo this track so you can hear the vocal sample. And then here, the higher pitches come in. I'll play the track. Okay, so that is one example of how you could use this. If you don't write this kind of music and if you absolutely hate it, then that third method may not be useful for you at all. But I just wanted to give an example of how I've used that in the past. So I hope you found something useful here on how you can work with creating harmonies in Studio One. It may not be a perfect solution, but it's something that you can try and maybe it will work for you when you're in a jam. All right, thanks for watching and I will see you in the next tutorial.